The city of Charlotte may have a surprise guest that could be a little hint on the future of who's going to be running the Carolina Panthers team. NFL insiders have provided some information on the current job status and the future job status of the Panthers General Manager, Scott Fitter. And a certain Carolina Panther had a career day yesterday that we have to discuss. We have all that and more in this edition of Panthers News Today. We're starting right now. What up, though? It's Aaron Duncan with the Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk here, bringing you recap and analysis of the Panthers, news and updates just like this with live streams, recaps of the game, podcasts, and film breakdowns. So if you want to stay on top of things have to do with this Carolina Panthers team, subscribe down below with the bell icon. That bell icon is going to make sure you get notified anytime I drop videos. If you want more in-depth analysis of the Panthers, join the Patreon, patreon.com/UB Sports Talk. The link down below in the description. So hit that Patreon and check that out for extra content. The first topic we have to discuss is the Panthers coaching search and the future of what it could potentially look like with whomever it's going to be. We all know that Frank Reich was let go last week and interim Chris Tabor was appointed to run the team for the remainder of the year. Now, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and things have been a mixed bag because we know how involved owner David Tepper is in this process and some of the day-to-day operations. So it's going to take a special type of person to coach, but we're at a real critical standpoint because Frank Reich was fired in his first year, and reports have been going around that this thing could be souring future prospects. However, there is one prospect that is very, very polarizing, and that is Jim Harbaugh, the current University of Michigan head coach. Jim Harbaugh does have background in the NFL, of course, coaching the 49ers, and also played quarterback in the league with a small time being with the Carolina Panthers at that. Jim Harbaugh will be visiting the city of Charlotte. Yes, the city of Charlotte. Now, is he coming to visit the Panthers and talk to David Tepper? Who knows? But according to reports, Jim Harbaugh is in Charlotte today. Prior reports say that he had a scheduled in-home visit with the Wolverines quarterback commit and Providence Day star Jaden Davis on Thursday. Of course, he has a good friend, Biff Poggi, lives here now, and maybe a meeting with David Tepper too. Very, very interesting. If the meeting's on Thursday, today's Monday, I know he got people in town, but that's a long time to be in the city of Charlotte. Now, I do love the city of Charlotte, but I don't know if anything's that interesting to be here that extended amount of time unless you got some other business to tend to. Now, reports also came out last year that Jim Harbaugh was very interested in the Panthers position. Him and David Tepper had conversations about it, and I guess he decided to go the other way with Frank Reich. However, coming back to the drawing board, Jim Harbaugh could be an option. Yes, he is at Michigan and has won 3 straight Big Ten titles and been to the college football playoff. Hasn't really won that national championship, but this could be their best chance to do it. He's been flirting and taking interviews for years, interviewed with the Vikings a couple years ago, and even has some interest potentially with the Bears down the line as well. So it seems like Jim Harbaugh's had one foot in, one foot out of college football in the NFL for a while now. And of course, they keep upping their salary in college, but I still think that David Tepper has the pockets to even buy out of that college contract if he would have to and go after Jim Harbaugh. Now, Jim Harbaugh will be a coach that probably wants some kind of say-so, if not final say-so, in the roster assembly, and David Tepper has a background with a coach like Matt Rule doing that. He may just feel like he could be open to that option again. He just maybe felt like Matt Rule did not have the pedigree and the knowledge to be able to do it properly, but would be open to do it. I also think that gives us a little bit of a hint about what could mean for Scott Fitter, because Scott Fitter has experience with that type of relationship with the head coach. So you never really know, but obviously these are just rumors right now. David Tepper can legally speak to Jim Harbaugh at this point because there's rules against talking to current NFL employed head coaches. So you can't do that until January 22nd. However, you can talk to college coaches at any point if you want to. So I would not be surprised if David Tepper and Jim Harbaugh have some kind of lunch or dinner while he's in town and just talk about the potential prospects before this coaching cycle gets into full swing, because obviously the college football playoff is in a couple weeks. So there's still some downtime now. Coaches are going to be going on visits as well. I'm sure him going to visit a top flight quarterback like Jaden Davis at Providence would not bode well if he ends up talking to an NFL team at that, because You know how the transfer portal works and these signing days work. These college kids, they will change their mind at the drop of a hat if a coach changes their mind. So we'll see what happens. You never know. Stranger things have happened, and we like to color outside the lines as a franchise with David Tepper as an owner. So Jim Harbaugh would be a very polarizing head coaching hire, but I think you want to get experience, offensive pedigree, mentality change, and just probably somebody that can right the ship and stable this dumpster fire of a franchise right now. Jim Harbaugh could be somebody that has to be considered, in my opinion. Not my favorite candidate, but I mean, honestly, you have to see what prospects are interested in this job, but we will see. You guys let me know down below in the comments how you would feel about potentially Jim Harbaugh being the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, being that he coached the 49ers, went to that Super Bowl, was a very competitive team. It seems like he would be the type of guy that would be willing to stand up and be able to tolerate, with a strong personality, to be able to tolerate David Tepper. So I would have to consider it, because it's going to take a special type of coach to be able to handle a very hands-on and meddling owner. But I want to get you guys' thoughts about Jim Harbaugh down below. The next topic has to do with the general manager, and I did mention that type of dynamic relationship potentially with Jim Harbaugh if Scott Fitterer was to stay on, but reports have come out from Adam Schefter before the game yesterday on Sunday about Scott Fitterer's job status. The article he wrote talked about David Tepper and just the firing of Frank Reich, but it also had a nugget about Scott Fitterer. It also remains uncertain who will help guide Tepper. The Panthers haven't given general manager Scott Fitterer any assurances that he will be retained, league sources say, though Carolina has intimated to some around the NFL that it would like to keep Tepper. Even so, league sources believe Fitterer's future remains up in the air. I know certain Panthers fans probably they're pissed off right now, because many think that if Frank had to go, Scott Fitterer had to go. There is some blood on Scott Fitterer's hands with the assembly of this roster. Granted, nobody could have saw the downfall of our offensive line coming, not to mention the injuries and stuff like that. But when it comes to draft picks and some free agent signings that we didn't retain, like a Stephon Gilmore or Hassan Reddick or stuff like that, Scott Fitterer's resume has some holes in it, to say the least. So I understand fan sentiments there. But this article pretty much says that some have heard that they want to keep him. Some have said that they haven't given him any promise that he's going to be around. I mean, remember when David Tepper did his press conference last week, he was asked about Scott Fitterer's status. He promptly ignored that. So it seems like things are up in the air depending on how the season goes. Like I said, I think it has to do with a lot to do with whoever's going to be the next coach. If they bring in the next coach and that coach doesn't really want to work with Scott Fitterer, they're probably going to go out and look for another GM potentially. If it ends up being somebody where they can't get the coach that they want and they have to stick with Scott Fitterer and bring in a coach like Jim Harbaugh that wants roster control but wants somebody to operate the day-to-day, that thing, Scott Fitterer is that agreeable type of guy that he will be open and willing and has experience working with a coach like that. So I understand why David Tepper would want to do that. David Tepper probably also thinks he's giving Scott the benefit of the doubt, because Matt Rule wasn't the best coach to have to be able to work with, and Frank Reich just seemed like he was going against a lot of what the front office wanted him to do. So they may feel like Scott doesn't take all the blame there. However, like I said, with his draft resume, letting some of these free agents not letting go and not keeping them on this team, the contract situation with Brian Burns, and obviously seems like we didn't get enough value for the Christian McCaffrey trade. There's some reasons to believe that Scott Fitterer won't be around. I personally feel like if you're going to do this carousel, clean house. You know what I'm saying? Don't do the whole hire the coach, hire the GM, fire the coach, fire the GM, back and forth that David Tepper has done. Clean the slate and do it the right way. Get the GM and get him to work with him to hire the next coach. That's how most teams do. I understand that you want to buck the trends and do things your way, David Tepper, but I personally feel like you do things the right way. You get guys in lockstep, and you don't have to worry about disconnects like Frank Reich not running RPOs when you want him to run RPOs, or you having a power offensive line when he wants to run more zone and finesse. That's how you get misaligned. Bring in both guys at the same time. You don't have to worry about that. You can get it rocking from there. You guys let me know down below in the comments how you feel about this report saying that Scott Fitterer may or may not return, and they may want to keep Scott around, just, I guess, not to rock the boat. Let me get you guys' thoughts down below how you feel about potentially Scott Fitterer being retained. A quick nugget here has to go to Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard had a career day against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A career high, 25 carries, 104 yards. Weren't his career high, but he did have 2 touchdowns, 77 yards after contact, and 6 missed tackles forced, according to Pro Football Focus. Chuba Hubbard has had a phenomenal year thus far. He has climbed the ranks. I think he's top 10 now in the Panthers all-time rushing, which isn't that hard because we haven't had too many elite guys over the years and we're still a young franchise, but it still is something for a guy that we were told was drafted mainly because Matt Rule's wife, remember him from Big 12 games, terrorizing the Baylor Bears. He has really improved so much, and you guys know me. I'm a big Chuba fan. I probably made a film breakdown on him every year of his career since he's been on the team. This one for this year will be coming sometime soon here. But Chuba Hubbard has really improved. I just really had to give a heads up. This guy is one of the few guys we've had on this team that has shown improvement. It's kind of been a light in what has been a dark offense. Now, Chuba Hubbard was not the primary guy. We signed Miles Sanders in free agency to a pretty hefty contract, the largest contract of any running back in free agency. But he's kind of been moved to backup duty, and it was a rotation early on in the year, but with Frank Reich gone, he's been pretty much pushed down to backup duty because early fumbles in the career, injuries, and just not being productive in the running game. But Chuba Hubbard has taken advantage of every opportunity, going from being a backup to Christian McCaffrey to have to be forced into action because of the injury to Christian McCaffrey to now it seems to be the feature back and had a phenomenal game against the Bucs. I had to give kudos and a round of applause to Chuba Hubbard, man. Shout out to my boy. The Panthers got a lot of guys back from injury, mainly their star cornerback, J.C. Horn, who has struggled with injuries pretty much his whole career. J.C. Horn played his first game since even before Labor Day. Yes, he was injured in week 1 with a major hamstring injury and had to have a procedure done, and he was able to come back. He's been practicing, and his 21-day window to come off IR was started a few weeks ago, and Monday was the deadline. They thus activated him on Saturday, started him on Sunday, and they did have him on a pitch count. He played about 50% of the snaps, 32 total, and I thought he looked pretty rusty, but you did see him make a play, having a pass breakup. You can look at his face, see him wincing, see him a little bit tired out there. Getting back into game shape will be what they want to do for JC. I know a lot of fans are sour on JC, and when they heard the reports that he came out of the game, they went berserk. They thought he was hurt all over again. I did think that he was hurting and wincing a little bit, but it could just be from being tired. Playing in that rain, playing in grass, can be very strenuous on the legs, especially when you haven't played in over 10 or 11 weeks. But I thought that he did okay. It's going to take some time for him to get used to that action and live bullets with quarterbacks throwing at you. I know he gave up that one chunk play to Mike Evans, and that just told me that he was rusty because the timing of him pressing the guy and jumping for the ball, it just seemed off, and it'll just take some time for him to run and get his legs back underneath him. But I'm just happy to have JC back. To see if he can play down the stretch, we'll have to evaluate him for his 5th-year option this offseason. Even though he's going to be going to year 4, we have to designate him if we want to extend him for his 5th-year option this year. So I want to get as many reps of him on the field as possible to see if he can at least play these final 6 games healthy and see how he plays, and he can show that resemblance of the elite corner that we think he can be when he's actually on the field. He just hasn't been on the field. But I was happy to see J.C. Horn finally made it back. See what he can do down this back stretch. You guys let me know down below in the comments. What you think about J.C. Horn, man? Do you think you look rusty? Are you off J.C. Horn at this point? I want to get you guys' thoughts down below. Last but not least, the Panthers have cut another offensive lineman, this time in the interior, of course, with Brett Toth being cut. The crazy part about this is Brett Toth started for the Panthers versus the Tennessee Titans. This is the second time they have cut a starting offensive lineman, with Brad Throckmorton released earlier this year as well after starting a game. This just lets you know the state of where we are on the offensive line. We've played a total of 5 guys in the left guard position and 6 guys at the right guard position. That's crazy. 11 guys within your guard positions have played, and it's just been a revolving door. And this just shows the state of what we are. We were blessed with health last year, and that had a lot to do with us being one of the better units in the league with that continuity and health. This year, we have kind of regressed to the mean. This is typically, it's a little bit on the far scale of ridiculous, but you have to feel like this maybe is a correction to pretty much how things normally go. Unprecedented territory, having that much health last year. Now we're up to unprecedented injuries, and it is just ugly this year. I think if you play guard for the Panthers, it's gotten to the point that you're either going to get cut or you're going to get hurt. None of those fates seem pretty good, so I would avoid playing guard for the Panthers like the plague, but this lets you know what we're dealing with on the offensive line, because when we have starters getting moved on from less than 7 days after they contributed that heavy, It lets you know that we're desperate and trying anything and everything down the stretch to get this protection. With Bryce Young being sacked 44 times this season, it has not been pretty. You guys let me know how you feel about this revolving door at the guard position, man. Like, how are you feeling about it? I mean, did you like what you saw yesterday from Nash, Jensen, and McCray? What did you think about the running game and all that with the new offensive line group that we had in? Let me know you guys' thoughts about any of the other topics we discussed. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel and hit those notification bells. That way you get the notification when I drop podcasts, live streams, and all of the above. Without further ado, I'm Aaron Duncan signing off with the Necessary Blunt Sports Talk. I'll see you next time. Peace.